not sure if Robin gave numbers, but I'll start there. So there are about 1.5 billion people on Facebook, and there are billions of pieces of content that are shared on Facebook every day, which means that safety is a big concern for us. In fact, I would argue it's our most important responsibility. We look at our mission at Facebook is for people to share and connect. We want the world to be more open and connected, and we believe that extraordinary things are created when the world is more open and connected and people are sharing. But integral to people's sort of willingness to share is that they feel safe, and integral to sort of our excitement about it is that they feel safe and that they are safe. So we develop policies with safety in mind. We develop tools with safety in mind. We have resources inside of Facebook for people at every point so that they can reach out for resources if they're feeling unsafe. And then also we have, are we good? We're good. Okay, so I'm not sure.
There's a little clicker somewhere that I left.
Oh, right here.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
All right, you should be good.
Okay, so before I go into to continue on with the tools and resources, the other thing that I think is really important to know is that safety is so important to us that we have safety and people who are working on safety in every part of our company. So in our communications team, in our policy team, in our product team, we actually have a product team, so we do product safety by design inside of our products, but we also have a team that is an engineering team that's dedicated solely to building the tools and resources that we have inside of Facebook for safety. I just talked to you about the mission part. So policy tools help partnership and feedback. We take a 5-point approach to safety. Policies, these are our policies that govern what can and cannot be shared on Facebook. Integral to that development of those policies is safety. Tools, so when we develop numbers of tools, and I'll talk to you a little bit more specifically about tools in a minute, tools like blocking and reporting that are developed with safety in mind. Help, I mentioned before that we have resources inside of Facebook around safety, and these are resources that range anything from if you see content around suicidal content, how can you help, to tools if you want to know how to block somebody or you want to know how to unfriend somebody. Partnerships. So I think I just want to linger on this one for a second because I think this one is actually essential to getting safety right. We're experts in a lot of things. Well, I may not be, but the rest of the company is. We're experts in a lot of things, but we're not experts in everything. And we're not necessarily experts in safety. So we spend a lot of time working with academics, NGOs, people from law enforcement, people from the sort of full spectrum of safety to develop our policies, our tools, our products, and getting their feedback so that we get it right. And then the last piece is just feedback from our own community. So we spend a lot of time learning from our own community what's making them feel safe and unsafe so that we develop tools and resources that work for them. So let me talk a little bit more about policy. We call these policies our community standards. These tell you what is and isn't okay to share on Facebook. Just to give you a sense, this is the wide range of policies. This is just a few of them, but that we have in place to deal with the content on Facebook. Everything from direct threats to irresponsible behavior. So it's a broad spectrum around which we develop our policies. As you can imagine, in such a diverse and global community, we're crossing so many different cultures, we have to come up with policies that work for the entire community. That's a challenge. So we wanted to come up with an approach to developing our policies that made sense, that we could work on, that we could use to develop global policies. So the three things that we consider as we're developing our policies are they principled, are they operable, and are they explicable? And when we're talking about principled, we're thinking about things like safety. Do they encourage respectful behavior? And are they culturally diverse? Or do they address our cultural diversity? Secondly, operable. So we have people who work 24/7 around the world to review content that's reported to us. And in order for them to apply our standards, uniformly from one place in the world to another place in the world, we have to come up with guidelines for them. So when we're developing our policies, we need to be thinking about how are we going to explain our policies in a way that someone who is applying those policies in India and someone who's applying those policies in the United States, they're going to end up with the same result. And then explicable. Can we explain them to people like you in a room, and you're going to understand and be able to understand that policy? So I'm just going to point out, I'm not going to spend a lot of time delving deeply into any of our specific policies, but I did want to point out 5 that I think are very integral to safety. One is dangerous organizations. We do not allow content on Facebook that puts people in danger, and we do not allow the glorification or support of dangerous organizations, terrorist organizations, criminal organizations. Graphic violence. So we do not allow extreme graphic violence on our site if it's shared for celebrating, promoting, laughing at it. Sometimes, as you can imagine, people share what's graphic content that is shared to express concern for a political conversation, to engage the community. When you have it shared in that way, but is a lesser form of graphic violence. So there's some that we just remove altogether. If it's reported to us, we'll age gate it and we'll put a warning interstitial because we are very mindful of the fact that we have people who are younger on our site. Nudity, so this actually goes to people that are younger on our site. As you can imagine, in a global community, the standards of nudity and what people tolerate runs a really wide gamut. And so we had to have, and we also have kids under the age of 19 on our policies, on our site. So for us, it was really important to come up with a policy that sort of we could apply globally, right? So we do not allow nudity on our site. And there are countries where we get flack about that, but that was, it's just a decision we had to make. CEI, this I think is really an important one. This is child exploitation images. We have a zero tolerance policy, obviously, for child exploitation images, but we also have tools that are used to design to get that off of our site. So we have a pretty proactive approach to this, and we also work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to report this content so that they can follow up with law enforcement. And bullying, we do not allow the harassment or bullying of individuals on our site. Okay, this is a video, and I am not sure if I can play that without clicking this. So let's see. This gives you, before I play this video, this gives you a sense of our community standards and how we develop it. The reason I'm showing it to you is that one of our big challenges is explaining this to the people who use Facebook. And so this is a video that is in our site that does that for people. And I think it's interesting to see how we do it.
At Facebook, our goal is to create a welcoming and safe environment so people can share and connect with their friends and families. Every day, people around the world share billions of things on Facebook. The conversations that happen here reflect the diversity of this global community. But occasionally, people share content that can be abusive or harmful. That's why we created Facebook Community Standards, to explain what kinds of things can and cannot be shared on the site. For instance, you can't bully or harass someone or post hate speech or threats of violence. If you see something that you think violates these standards, report it by using the report link so that we can review it and take action. Not all disagreeable or disturbing content violates our community standards, but by blocking, unfollowing, or unfriending the person or page that posted the content, you can control what you see on Facebook. To learn more about our community standards, visit facebook.com/communitystandards.
So next, I want to talk to you a little bit about the tools that we put in place, because one of the key parts of keeping people safe is giving them the ability to control their experience on Facebook. So people can choose with whom they share and what they share. Anytime you post content, you can post it to public, you can post it to friends, you can create custom audiences. That's designed so that you can share the content that you want to share with the group that you want to share it with. We have something called Privacy Checkup This allows you to run through very quickly your content and and check your settings. The reason that we developed this is to try to give people a very easy, quick way to look at their settings. Then if they want to think more deeply about privacy and how they're using Facebook, they can go to something called Privacy Basics, which is explained very basically in a way that's understandable so that people can control their privacy settings. Blocking. I think this is a really, really important one. You should not have to see content that you don't want to see, and you should not have to be in contact with someone that you don't want to be in contact. So if someone contacts you and for whatever reason, you don't want to be in contact with them, you can block them. And we do not notify that person that you've blocked them. Reporting. On every piece of content, there's a button, a little chevron button like this, where you can report that to us, and we can review it for violations of our community standards. And if it violates our standards, we'll take it down. And this takes us to social reporting. This goes back to the diversity of our community. So one of the things that we found is that sometimes it's very hard to tell without more context whether something maybe violates our community standards or whether it doesn't violate, but maybe it is bothering that person. And we noticed with a number of our reports that people were reporting things that it was just that they didn't, oh, it's an ugly photo of me, I don't like that photo, I don't want it up, but it didn't violate our community standards. So we wanted to come up with a way for people to address that kind of interaction, because you're not there face-to-face with the person where you could say, hey, take that photo down. Although I'll tell you a very quick funny story, because I want to leave time for questions. I took my daughter on a college tour recently, and we were at where I went to school, and we were sitting at a place that I had eaten at while I was in law school. And I wanted to get a photo to put it up on my Facebook page. I took a photo, I put it up. We're sitting there. I mean, our food hadn't even come, and all of a sudden she looks up in horror at me and says, take that photo down. She's not looking at Facebook, but a friend of hers has sent the photo to her, and her eyes were sort of half closed. So I immediately, of course, took it down, it's out of respect. But this tool provides for people through Facebook to do exactly that kind of interaction. And again, I'm going to give you a video because I think it's really interesting to see the people who developed this tool and how they came to it.
People communicate so much with their body language, with their eyes, with their facial expressions. And with Facebook being a website, one of the big challenges is how can you build those social signals that exist in the real world into Facebook, the product. More often than not, when someone doesn't like something that they see, it doesn't necessarily violate Facebook's community standard. It's a violation of the social contract between two people.
A good example of this would be a photo that gets tagged to me, and I don't like the way I look in that photo. Now I have a process to let my friend know, hey, I don't like the way I look in this photo, can you take this down?
So we were thinking about what's the right way to help somebody deal with this kind of situation. You want two friends to talk to each other, you want a friend to say, hey, you know that photograph you posted, that's not great. It's hard to tell your friends that you don't like something that they did. So when we began looking at the research that was happening around compassion and communication, we realized that there were many people in the field doing really great work. So we started working with them in January of this year, and after 6 months, we had some real results to show from the work that we did together.
We realized that there was a great opportunity to infuse the flows that we were building with these theories of compassion. The way we've done that is when you say, I don't like this photo, we ask you for more context around that. Why don't you like this photo? And some of the reasons that we offer are, it's embarrassing, it's a bad photo of me, it's inappropriate. And what we've seen is that by giving people better language to have these conversations, it actually turns out the person who receives the message is much more likely to respond.
We found that 65% of the people who receive that message feel positive about the person who raised the concern.
With bullying, for example, a person's getting harassed in real life. One of the great things about this feature is we're able to capture that bullying, and the person is able to send that to somebody in their life that can actually help them through the issue. And it provides a forum for them to actually bring real-world resolution to that type of harassment and bullying.
Facebook is all about community. And if you think about the life cycle of a community, you've got the things that you share that people like, that they hug each other about, that are really wonderful. But you also sometimes have conflict and disagreement. And our role is to help provide the tools so that you can remain close with your friends. And that encompasses the positive interactions as well as where there's conflict or disconnects.
If you see something you don't like on Facebook, simply click the report link and we'll try to provide you with the best tools to help resolve the situation as quickly as possible.
So I'm going to move really quickly through the last bit of my, my presentation so that we can take some questions. This same team very recently developed something called our suicide prevention tool. So we found that sometimes when people see content that's very upsetting, content that, for instance, someone indicates that a friend indicates that they might harm themselves, that it's very upsetting to the person who sees it. They want to be able to reach out and help, but they oftentimes don't know how. So we've put inside of our platform the ability, when you report that content as self-harm, for you to get resources for yourself and also to enable you to help reach out to the person who posted that content. And I can walk you, I'm not going to walk you through the details, but I'd be happy to talk to people afterwards. Last, and very, very quickly, I mentioned that we have resources inside of our platform. One of them is our Family Safety Center, and this is a really good place. It even has conversation starters for parents who are trying to talk to their kids about these issues, educators talking to their kids about these issues. And most interestingly, recently, we started something around social and emotional learning that's actually happening in classrooms. These are lessons plans that are that teachers are working on, that we have teens that are working on, that are 5 to 10 minutes, some of them more like an hour long for others, to help them learn how to interact in classroom, in face-to-face, because our sense is that if people are better at interacting offline and we can help undermine bullying offline, we'll impact their behaviors online as well. Again, I won't run through this. I mentioned it earlier, the importance of partnerships in all of this. We are not experts on suicide, but we work with experts on suicide to develop those kinds of tools. I'll skip this so that we can work on questions. And very quickly, this is only like 1 minute. I want to just show one last video because social media can also be used to really help resolve situations. And I think it's really important when we see kids doing this to call it out.
The varsity soccer team had played 10 or 11 games and lost every single one of them by really embarrassing margins. Our goalkeeper, Daniel Quee. He was taking a lot of criticism, even though he was only a freshman playing varsity goalkeeper. We thought we were on the road to our first game that wouldn't be a loss. At the last minute, everything changed. Their star player, with a minute left, cracked the shot, and unfortunately, Quee wasn't able to stop it. It was in the back of the net, and the next thing we knew, the ref was blowing the final whistle.
It's horrible, I guess, because as a goalie, that little one mistake, is a goal, and a goal in soccer is huge. This guy said, "Oh, I'm gonna make a great photo album. We have a bunch of pictures of you making great saves." The photos went up, and I was just shocked. It was just, horrible. After those photos were posted, there was a lot of tension. And I didn't want to go to school. I felt like taking time off. I didn't want that attention. I didn't want that negativity.
We decided we had to do something. And eventually we found this great picture of Quee making a save. And the 3 or 4 of us at about 7 p.m. made it our profile picture. I came back about an hour later, and my newsfeed had exploded. It started with the soccer team making it our profile pictures, and the girls' soccer team made it their profile pictures, but then the whole school got involved. Over 100 people had either liked it, commented on it, tagged themselves in it, made it their profile pictures, and it was like my entire newsfeed was covered in Daniel Quee stories. He came to school the next day like he was 10 feet tall. Once he had that confidence, he was just going for it. throwing himself out there like a rag doll. And the next season, one game, they were just hammering shot after shot after shot. And Kui makes the best save of his life. He was parallel to the ground, he did a Superman dive, and the ref blew the whistle and we won the game.
And I punted the ball up in the sky, and then I started running. It's like, wow, best moment of my life. I changed from the freshman kid to Daniel Kui, the beast goalkeeper.
The whole school had stood up for someone who needed it. He was a normal kid just like us. We have our highs and our lows, and that's when we realized that we were all Daniel Kui.
So to close on that, I think I said at the beginning of when I was speaking that we think of safety as our most important responsibility. We also think that safety is a community effort, and you can see that we can develop the tools that we need to develop on Facebook, and we can work to develop the tools inside of schools so that our community has the tools that they need as well in order to resolve these kinds of issues. So.
I'm glad you took the time to show that video. That's very important.
Sorry.
The question? Questions?
So is Facebook really embracing this idea that younger kids are using it? And is there a plan to make this an actual thing for them?
So the question is Facebook embracing the younger kids that are using?
So just Facebook is for 13 and above, and we are very mindful of that fact, as you can see from some of the tools. So yes, I guess is the answer.
Can I ask, what are some of the concerns that parents come to you with that you believe are a little bit perhaps overblown relative to what you deal with? And vice versa, what are some of the things that parents perhaps are not looking out for but should?
Well, first of all, as a parent, I would never call another parent's concern overblown, only because I've experienced that. I think that if I were to actually say to parents what's the most important thing they can do, I would say it's to start the conversation with your kids early. If you think about social media, kids generally start using, if you say around 13, maybe in some instances younger, they're starting right at the age at which they're developing their own separate identity, in which they're testing out their own identity. If you wait until they're at that place where when they come home from school they're closing the door, it's really hard to start that conversation. So starting the conversation when they're younger, prior to getting onto social media, is really, really important. And I think the second tip I would give to parents is that parents think about having their kids teach them. So this is an area where sometimes kids may know more than their parents, and having, kids like to show their knowledge. That I know my 18-year-old definitely likes to tell me that she knows more than me, than I do. So it's an opportunity for them to show you. Have them walk, when they open up their Facebook account, have them walk through with you and show you what their privacy settings are. That's a really good way to start that conversation. Now, in terms of things that parents should be thinking about that are, outside of the scope of fears, I actually think that parents, they have a pretty good sense of the things that they should be aware of. It's much more about that conversation and figuring out how to have that conversation.
If you're a parent of a kid and you have a crisis, like the thing that was starting with the soccer, and it's like really getting bad, is there a way to reach a person at Facebook? Like, can I have your email?
You can have my email, actually. Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, there are. I mean, first of all, you should know that our reports are actually reviewed by people.
Humans?
Yes. So, yes.
Zuck?
Not Zuck. Maybe sometimes. No, not. I mean, they're reviewed. They are reviewed by people. So.
How do you, like, I'm on Facebook, right? How do I find that actual person?
How do you personally find that person?
Yeah.
So, well, you will, once you report, there are two things. There's a dashboard where you can check on the progress of your report, but you'll get an email back from,
Okay.
from a person, not from a machine. And you can engage in an email conversation that way.
All right. Because it sometimes feels that with Google and the larger services, there isn't a human. There's a contact us form, but it's like, okay, good luck with that. And sometimes with stuff like Facebook, you're in an urgent situation.
Well, on an urgent situation, I would say this. We find that, particularly around issues like bullying, that there is no disconnect between the online and the offline. So the online, if something's going on online, there's very likely something going on offline. And I, just as a parent, would highly recommend reaching out to the school to find out what's going on.
The school or the police.
Yeah, if needed, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have to keep on schedule. But hey, guys, a real Facebook person.